everyone, and welcome back to my channel Designing with Angie. Today's episode is dedicated to color profiles, though I will mostly talk about Cmyk and Rgb. As you can imagine, it's not the most interesting of topics and there's a lot of information that I could have covered. So I've tried to make a selection for you to really cover what's important. However, if there's a piece of information or a question that you would like me to talk about, feel free to drop them in the comments and I will get back to you. Enjoy! So to be able to explain well color profiles, there's a little basic I would like to cover first, and it's the two main type of color profiles. What you have mostly is Cmyk, so cyan, magenta, yellow, black profiles on one hand, and on the other you have Rgb, which stands for red, green, blue. Both profiles are different and similar at the same time. They're different because one, namely Rgb, is used for everything which is screen related, so to view color as light. And Cmyk, the other one, is how pigments are going to be mixing together, how inks are going to be coming together on paper to create color. One is called the subtractive method, Cmyk, and the other one is the additive color theory. And this comes from the fact that when you blend inks, or you can also try with paint, it works exactly in the same way. What you're going to be doing by adding pigments and different paints together is you're going to be removing layers. You're going to be removing things light is able to be refracted from to create color. And it's why when you, for instance, mix blue with magenta, you're going to get some kind of a purplish color, like the one you have here in the middle. Same with magenta and yellow that are going to give you red. Yellow and blue will give you green, and supposedly when you blend all these colors together, you get black that you see here in the middle. Although it's not really a very deep shade of black, which is why Cmyk also has a separate black passage in the press. If you mix paint together, you'll see that you'll never really also obtain a very deep black. You're going to obtain a kind of brownish, grayish color, but never something too deep. So this is always the reason why it's important to use the standalone black color, so you have more depth into your mix. So this is one. And the other, Rgb, the additive method, this one actually combines light beams together. So when you combine green and red light, you're going to get yellow. Combining red and blue will give you this light purplish color, whereas this dark blue and green will give you a light blue. And blending all of these colors together, adding all of these colors together in light, is going to give you white. Now, a little piece of information regarding both Rgb and Cmyk. What I strongly recommend before going any further with working, creating documents, etc., is calibrating your screen. On a Macintosh, to calibrate your screen, you can just go to the System Preferences, and under Display, Colors, you have a button here called Calibrate. What you can do, what I prefer usually, is going with the expert mode. So hold Alt down, click Calibrate, and it will show you here this little tool which has the expert mode turned on. And basically you're just going to be adjusting sliders here to get the colors to the way they are the best for you. I really recommend taking the time to do this. It can really make quite the change, as sometimes I notice that screens may have a light blue, a light yellow or a light red tint, and I think having a good correction to start with is also going to ensure that your work is as precise as possible when it comes to colors. Of course, this is just one way of doing it. You have other methods available. You have calibrating tools. A lot of them are very, very good. And I can only highly recommend you look into this if you want to work with colors at a professional level. A color profile is more or less a set of instructions. You're going to be telling on one side how you want colors to be added together to get a specific result. If you check here the palette, you can see you have different percentages, which represents the 4 Cmyk colors. And this is simply to ensure in the end that what you're creating on your computer for your client is going to be closely as possible the same to what will be delivered, the final printed product. This also stands true, of course, for RGB. What you're telling the computer to do is to create specific colors so they more or less display the same, whether you're creating a website or creating pictures, things like that. You're ensuring that everything looks the same no matter where you're displaying it. Now, the importance of color profile goes a little deeper than that. I'll be covering that in a sec. But there is also the importance of calibration, like I stated. Even sometimes between devices, you can see colors that are very different from one another. Try to look at a picture on your tablet, on your computer, and try to check the same exact picture on your telephone. And a lot of the time, you will see that the colors are already very different on each and every device. Setting the right color profile is also making sure you're giving the correct instructions. For example, this is what happens if I try to change here the document profile to Cmyk. This is massive. I mean, see again for yourself. You can see that the color difference between the two modes is very visible. And the reason for that, the reason why you have such a difference, is because when it comes to pure light, you have a much wider range of color, a much wider gamut than when you're going to be blending inks together on paper. When it comes to color profile, the first thing you'll want to do, of course, is use the correct setup when you'll be preparing a document. And this you can do in the advanced options when creating a new Illustrator document. You can directly here choose RGB or Cmyk when you create. Else, you can always here go into File, Document Color Mode, and then you can simply convert. A little thing I would advise you to do to gain time also in the future is to just prepare a couple of settings here in color settings. And what you can do is define the default behavior of what Illustrator is supposed to be doing when you open up specific types of documents. Here, for instance, you can specify, okay, this is, for example, the standard RGB profile I would like you to use. I live in Europe, so when it comes to Cmyk, I usually work with program. You can also specify that here. And also, when you open documents where you don't really have settings, you can tell the program what to do in these cases. By the way, this is something which is not only available here in Adobe Illustrator, but you will be able to do the exact same in Adobe Photoshop. So, if you check when you create a document, you can also do that directly here. But as you see, you have a little more settings than in Adobe Illustrator. Today, I'd rather focus just on Cmyk and on RGB. But just a note, apparently, lab color is one of the most precise profiles you can have when you work with colors altogether. Because the way this one is created, the way this one is designed is to work more or less like a human eye. In Photoshop, You can directly convert a document here by going into Image mode, and here you can specify whether you want your document to be RGB or CMYK. And the little setting I showed you in Adobe Illustrator is also available here under Color Settings. So here you can also tell the program, okay, this is the standard I want you to use for RGB, and here again for CMYK, and this is what I want you to do when I open up a document where there is no color information just yet. Before exporting a document to either a picture, a PDF, or anything else, there are also a couple of small things you may want to be checking. Here in Cmyk, so when something is destined to be printed, something I strongly recommend you do is check the Overprint Preview. What the Overprint Preview is about is sometimes when a document is being printed on paper, there are several passages in the press with the different colors, the darker colors being printed last, and it can happen that the prints are not well calibrated and you can get tiny gaps in between the colors. This tool here helps you make up for that. What you can do is turn on the Overprint Preview, go to Attributes, and here you can check this. This is gonna make sure that you have just a little extra colors in the zone where this kind of thing may happen, so that you don't get a gap and you get something visually pleasing with the end result. Other things you may want to be looking at if you have graphics or images is simply that they are already into the corresponding color scheme. What you can do is re-rasterize pictures. Here, for instance, you can see I'm in RGB with this image, and it offers me color models that are according. If I now wanted to convert this to CMYK without having to go into Photoshop, all I would need to do is go into Files, switch the profile, and now if I look at this again, there you go. The option is available and I can just go ahead and convert my image. Another setting you may want to be on the lookout for before saving your document is to make sure your colors are going to be matching if you're working with pictures, like my example here. So this one is still in the RGB space. However, if I were to convert this to a CMYK document, something I may want to do is to proof colors. So when you do that, it's almost the equivalent of converting your graphics to CMYK minus doing it. So it's kind of like a preview, if you will. As you can see here, I don't have much of a difference right now, but it's something that can get very strong with certain artworks, certain pictures. I'll show you a little later on. And last but not least, when everything else is correct, you might want to check your proof setup. It's just about setting the correct color mode. If you want to go further, you can of course customize. Here you have all sorts of different color profiles. For prints, for Europe, it's nice to work with foie gras, as foie gras is the standard. You have the 39 and the 27. I really recommend going for foie gras 39. 27 apparently can have little problems. However, 39 will really make sure that the print shop where you'll send your work will be satisfied with what you've done. It's the one I always use and never had a problem so far. In the United States, some of the color profiles that are currently popular are web-coated. Now it's important, and I'd recommend you get in touch with your print shop to know exactly what they use and to make sure you are aligned with their way of working. You can do just about the same as what I've just shown you in Illustrator with Adobe Photoshop. You have a whole bunch of tools that are readily available. Here, for instance, in the View menu, you have Proof Colors. This is a very handy and quick tool to preview what your pictures are going to be looking like in Cmyk. The reason why you want to do this is to apply good color corrections to your pictures and to really make sure that you have similar results from one profile to the other. A very nice tool that you have here is also this one here. It's the Gamut Warning. Remember how I talked about Gamut a little earlier on and I showed you a picture where you actually had different color profiles, you know, being one on top of the other. And when it came to light, you had a lot more nuances. This is what this one is about. All the little gray areas you see here are colors where I will have a problem in Cmyk with my document. So what this is showing me is overall my picture here has light settings that will never correspond when it comes to print. So this tool here will help me to preview and to make sure corrections are done in a good way. And the last one that I showed you also in Illustrator is simply changing and making sure you have the correct color profiles. Here you can turn to Internet Standard RGB, sRGB for example. It's one I like very much when it comes to RGB. Another way to quickly convert a picture with another profile is to go here to Assign Profile. This can be quite handy when you're working with lots of pictures and you need to convert them, or simply to preview what a color profile will look like. A profile I'm not really fond of is the Adobe Rgb Profile. I've apparently heard that it's supposed to have more colors available as an RGB profile. However, I have a real issue with this because each time I've tried to use it and to apply to pictures, here it's not that visible, but there are other pictures where it's really, really strong. It really distorts all my colors. And I've noticed this to be especially true when it comes to very bright red tones. So usually I stick to sRGB as I reckon it's the best profile I work with when it comes to color management for RGB. Before moving on to export settings, I'll just throw a quick note about Pantone Colors. It's a really nice alternative to fiddling around with color profiles. They're still important, but this one really ensures that no matter what you print, colors will be the same. So they're an industry standard, and in Adobe Illustrator, in your color palette, you can go to swatches. Here you open up the color book library and you have a whole bunch of them already available. I usually work with the Cmyk coated and the uncoated. It's something where you can just pick a color basically, and those are pigments that are ready to use by print shops. So no matter where you print, colors will turn out the same. Think brands like Coca-Cola, where they have a very specific red tone that they use on their packagings. That specific red is a Pantone color. Now, bear in mind the costs for your clients if you're going to work with this. Naturally, you can always convert them to Cmyk if you used it for some XYZ reason, and in the end, it will not be exported as a Pantone color. It's also very important to note clearly the references, so you can give that exact reference to the print shop to ensure that the colors are the exact ones that you picked. When everything is ready and you've made all your corrections and proofs, you're ready to create your final document. Here today I'm going to be talking about PDFs mostly for Adobe Illustrator, as I think it's one of the industry standards that we see the most and where there are also often the most problems when it comes to color profiles. So let's save this baby as a PDF. Here, save. And that's the standard dialog box. I will be selecting Press Quality. And what we want to be looking at today here is the Output tab. Options are the following. By default, what you have is no conversion. This means that there's no particular profile nor color information that's going to be integrated to the document you will be creating. You have Convert to Destination, where you can integrate a color profile. That color profile can be independent from the actual color information you have in the document, by the way. Hence the two choices here that I will cover in a sec. So here you can choose the destination, so the actual profile you want to integrate into your file. As you can see, you have a whole bunch of them. From video to pre-press, there's a whole variety. Don't include profile here means it's not going to include that destination profile that you've selected here. A lot of the time what I choose, what works best for me in my Cmyk documents, is to choose Convert to Destination with preserved numbers. And here I can save to a Cmyk profile, for instance, but not include this destination profile. So it will keep the fact that my document is Cmyk, but it will not be integrating the foie gras information that's here currently selected. My personal favorite is Include Destination Profile, as it's usually what I'm trying to do, ensure color quality and consistency. In Photoshop is a little more straightforward. Basically, it's all about here setting up the correct modes, and if you have extra information that your print shop is asking from you, making sure, of course, everything matches. It's the most important. When you save your document, a little trick is to check whether or not you're going to be needing to embed the color profile. When it comes to professional photography, I would strongly recommend to do that. However, if you are converting pictures simply for the web, I would recommend you not to use this. When you integrate a color profile, you are creating a larger file because this is going to be taking more information. And of course, we all know that when you save something for the web, the idea is for it to view as quickly as possible. So bearing that in mind, you'll want to uncheck this one after making sure all your colors settings are correct. That's it for me today. That was a lot of information. However, I do hope you have found some interesting bits and pieces. Don't forget to like, comment or share, and also subscribe. Until next time, bye!